Hi everyone, it's Jen again. So this week I've been busy as usual with my going to work and had to go to the dentist this week and doing my freelance and working on my game. And most of the additions that I've made to the game have been relatively small. I haven't really added any new core mechanics or any major improvements, so I don't have a lot to talk about my development from that point of view. So I thought I might take this week to just kind of talk a little bit about just overall wellness and sustainability when you are doing game dev. And I'm still learning. I don't have all the answers or the magical formula for living a good life, but I have made a lot of progress in the last 5 years especially, as far as being able to balance my life and minimizing the amount of burnout that I experience, in comparison, I guess, to the first my early 20s through my 30s. So my first kind of I guess peak of my growth and productivity, being kind of in my 20s. I had a lot of drive to kind of try to prove myself. I was looking for a lot of validation. I worked very hard, but I don't think that I was necessarily more prolific as far as the amount of work I was able to produce than I am now, despite the fact that I'm working full-time and that I'm a mom and that I take better care of my health and my house and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm gonna kind of talk about why that is. So when I was in my 20s and I was super laser focused on drawing comics, improving my craft, and trying to make it in the arts industry, trying to monetize my work in a way that I could do it full time. This is what I thought that I needed to do in order to have the time to draw comics or to create art. I thought that having a regular full-time job would take away from my ability to produce the amount of art that I wanted to be able to produce. And so it was kind of this all or nothing, do or die kind of mentality that if I don't make it selling my artwork, then that's it for me. I guess I'll just be stuck in the doldrums of doing a job I hate and never having time and energy left over to do my art. And I think a lot of people probably feel this way, and a lot of people hold themselves back from being able to work on art or doing some type of creative project because they're oh, I'm so burnt out from my day job, from everyday life, that I don't have the energy, that I am too tired. And certainly this could be the case if you have a very physically demanding job. You could literally just be your body and could be so tired that you might not be able to have time for a hobby left over. But at least in my case, I've never had a hugely physically demanding job. Even jobs where I had to be on my feet all day were not so physically demanding that I'm I am at a calorie deficit and I have no energy left over to do anything. It was really more of a mental mindset that I focused so much on being miserable and not being able to do what I wanted to do, that I actually kind of held myself back by just basically feeling emotionally tired all the time. And since I've kind of changed my mindset, found a tolerable job working working at the library where it's something that I can feel good about and passionate about, and still kind of grow as a person within working for the library, it gives me enough mental energy to be able to work on my side projects and my art and my freelance on the side, and still have a balanced life as far as maintaining those really important human connections and trying to keep my house at an acceptable level of like sanitary condition, and being able to like eat like relatively healthy. Like, I'm not a very active person. I'll never be a very active person, so I'm never going to be able to work in like doing a 2-hour like fitness routine, or walk or something like every day or every other day or even once a week. Like, that's never going to happen. I just don't have the interest, and I've tried to do those sort of things in the past, and it's like never really sustainable for me, because this is not something that I like derive a lot of like pleasure or even energy from. I have kind of low blood pressure, and so like doing a lot of strenuous exercise just kind of wipes me out, and it leaves me kind of like just sitting on the couch like a potato for the rest of the day. Versus some people, they will do exercise routines and they'll be like, wow, I feel so much better and so much more ready to go now that I did that. Not the case for me. So what do I find that's like sustainable to keep my body like basically able to function? Because now that I'm in my 40s, I started getting like neck pain and back pain from how sedentary my life is, and would get like I would pull like a leg muscle just like going up the stairs. So conventional wisdom, I feel like, or cultural wisdom would be like, okay, you need to dedicate like time to go walking and to do like go to the gym and like do all this stuff. You got to work into your day. You got to, is all or nothing. Either you're going to, deteriorate and, I don't know, become like this petrified version where you're like, you're hunched over and you can barely move, or you're gonna have to be like an athlete. There's no like in between. So what was sustainable for me was basically just like little spurts. I kind of saw what my cats do, and they spend the majority of their time just laying around, and then they get like little bursts of energy. So what do? I try not to sit at my desk for more than like an hour or two at a time, because honestly, that is when my productivity usually like kind of slows down anyways, where I start to wander, I start to slow down. I'm not as on fire. It's probably time for me to get up and move around a little bit. So I try to make good use of that time. So I'm not necessarily like doing an exercise routine, but I'm vacuuming. Whenever I go up and down the stairs, I try to take 2 steps at a time to just kind of like work those muscles just a little bit more. I stretch every day. My entire life, as far as I can remember, I could never touch my toes. But when I started having that neck and back pain and stuff, I just started stretching every day when I would like get up. And this would be for just like, maybe 5 minutes at the most. And it's like a year went by, and suddenly I found I could touch my toes. And it wasn't even like a goal of mine. It's just something that just like happened that I thought that I would never be able to do, because it's not like I never tried stretching or doing exercise, but I never stuck to it long enough. I never did it every day, because I always tried to go too hard that I wouldn't like stick to it for like long-term sustainability. So I'm doing these things in like little small changes that kind of suit my lifestyle and the things that I like to do, to try to maintain at least like what I would say it is, not like a level of fitness, like I'm not a fit person at all, but a level of mobility, a sustainable mobility, so that hopefully by the time I am, a senior citizen, I will still be able to move around without, struggling to like bend down and get back up and that sort of thing. We're looking for long-term sustainability with what would like kind of fit in easily in my lifestyle. So the same goes with like nutrition. I'm not a person who likes to spend a lot of time doing meal prep. I don't like to spend a lot of time in the kitchen in general. And I'm also very cheap when it comes to like how much I'm willing to spend on food. So like pretty much every day I do like this thing. This is, I boil a little pot of water that's like enough for like one person, and I chop up like a scallion, and I chop up like some baby carrots, and I just throw them in the pot. And while I'm waiting for the water to boil, I will like clean the litter box, I will vacuum the stairs, I will sweep the floor, I will do the dishes, I will do something small while I'm waiting for the water to boil, wipe down the counter. When the water boils, I will crack 2 eggs in there, a chicken or beef bouillon or vegetable bouillon cube, and maybe some powdered garlic or powdered curry or powdered ginger, or maybe all 3, just depending on my mood, and throw in a huge handful of spinach, and yeah, that's that. And then I'll usually like either have some cooked rice that I have for the week or something and throw that in there, or maybe I'll just have a piece of bread with it, and that is a good kind of like, I guess, relatively nutritious meal, and it's very cheap, and the ingredients will last a long time, so I don't have to worry about the carrots going bad or the spinach going bad, or I guess the spinach would go bad if I didn't use like a bag of spinach in a week, but it'll last, it'll bleed over until the next week, and if not, I can just like freeze it, or I can use like frozen spinach, right? Same with the scallions, same with the eggs. It's a cheap, easy meal that I don't have to pay attention to for very long when I'm cooking it. I can like try to do something else around the house that needs to get done. No longer do I set aside like a day to clean. I just do little cleaning throughout the week, again, when I have time, when I have to get up to like kind of move around a little bit since I've been at my desk all day. I don't spend a day to do laundry or a day to like vacuum. I just do a little bit here and there. I will literally just vacuum the stairs for like 5 minutes while I'm waiting for something to happen. And then that's all the vacuuming I'll do for the day. And then the next day I'll vacuum like a rug in the main room or like a bath mat or something while I'm waiting for, I don't know, my coffee, microwaving my coffee or something. I'll just like, I've got a little hand vac, I'll just vacuum, the bathroom rug or something. And that's how I maintain a level of acceptable sanitary cleanliness in my house. It's still like pretty cluttered, and it's never going to be like super clean, but it's going to at least be like a healthy environment for me to be in and for my family to be in. So taking care of your body, taking care of your environment, those are important things to do that I used to always neglect when I was younger, because I have to spend all my time and energy focusing on working on my projects. Well, as you grow older, you're gonna have to take care of yourself because your body's gonna start falling apart. And I wish I had done these things for myself when I was younger, because actually, again, as I was saying before, you spend too many hours like focused on your productivity, and you actually reach a certain limit where you can only be so productive, and the speed at which you're working will like kind of slow down, or the quality of your output is going to be compromised. We're just not like biologically wired to be sitting and like hunched over and doing these things for like 10 hours at a time, and I think that is one of the reasons why I would get so burnt out, is because what were the things that were driving me to like spend like that long sitting there working on these projects at one time? A lot of times it wasn't like being present. It wasn't because I was enjoying the process so much of like, drawing or whatever I was doing, that like in that moment I just couldn't stop. It was more like I had my eyes on a goal that I wanted to get to, and I was obsessed with getting there. So like if my body was in pain, or if I was like feeling bored, or if I was not like that into it, I would just be disciplined, and I would just like power through it, because it was important for me to discipline myself to achieve my goal, to reach that carrot on a stick. And I'd actually spend more time thinking about where I wanted to be than in that moment enjoying what I was doing. Like, yes, I would enjoy looking back at what I had accomplished, and there would be times where I would enjoy what I was doing, but a lot of times it wasn't about like what I was doing, it was about like what I was trying to achieve. And if that is like what you get out of the creative process is just like chasing the carrot, you're, at least for myself, I was setting myself up for these depressive cycles where I would almost like have this like punishing discipline to work really, really, really hard. And then once you achieved your goal, once you reached the carrot, then it would like usually end in disappointment because it wasn't like the magical button to push that suddenly everything in my life would be fulfilled, and you know, I would just find happiness and it would be the happily ever after ending. It would usually be like a good feeling that would last for a short time, and then there would be like a depression that would hit in afterwards because it wasn't the end all be all of like happiness. It couldn't fulfill like everything that had been building up to, you know, for it to be, that I had like pushed myself so hard to get to. There's nothing that could happen that would probably end up making that feel like a dream come true, you know. Even if your dream does come true, your life is going to keep going. You're not just going to peak at like 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, and then happily ever after into the sunset. Like, life goes on. You're still going to have hardships. You're still going to have ups and downs. And there's no one achievement that's going to change that present being. And so I find, instead of like having my eyes on the finish line all the time, if I can actually enjoy just that moment of like putting one foot in front of the other. Yes, it feels good to look back and see how far you come. Yes, it feels good to look forward to the finish line. But if I can spend like the majority of my time and energy more focused on that, putting one foot in front of the other, being in the present and enjoying that process, then I can enjoy more of my life. Because how much of my life was spent like looking at the carrot at the end of the stick versus being at the carrot at the end of the stick? You know, 99% of my time I was not at my goal. Versus like that 1% of the time that I would actually, you know, be at my goal, and then it's gone. It doesn't stay. It's fleeting. So I find now that I've been happier, and just feeling more energetic and not as prone to these like big cycles of like kind of like depression, since I've been able to try to focus more on like that process than to be always chasing the carrot. So that would be like, you know, the other major step that I've made to try to make game development more sustainable for me, is that one, taking care of my health and my environment. Two, changing my mindset to a more present mindset. And then three would be to value those human connections and make time for those human connections. Be a part of your community, and I'm talking about your physical community, not just like online spaces. It's so important to expose yourself to the people in your community. Expose yourself to, you know, to, I guess, non-curated spaces where you're going to run into other people who are not similar to you in any way, and still be able to like open yourself up to making those human connections. Like, don't insulate yourself into a bubble. I think that, you know, there's just so much diversity and everybody's got such a unique and interesting story that it's just really important to like kind of open yourself up to being able to be receptive of that. I feel like my world has gotten so much bigger, you know, once I did kind of like put myself more out there. Even though I am an extreme introvert, I can definitely spend like my entire life like closeted, you know, holed up away in a basement somewhere. But that does for me lead me to a very cynical kind of place, because it's part of our human biology, right? Again, to be communal, to be, you know, with other people physically as well as like mentally. And so, you know, I make time to text my friends every day to check in on them, see how they're doing. I call my mom every day on my way to work to see how she's doing. You know, every time I see my son, I give him a hug, even though I'm not like a touchy-feely person normally. Because all these things are important. You need those that human contact, both physically and mentally. So don't think of them as like, I don't have time for this, or you got to make a big deal. Again, no, none of that all or nothing kind of mentality. Like, you don't have to, you know, go places in order to, like, you know, connect with people necessarily. You know, like texting people regularly with more than just like, I don't know, hey, how you're doing, or like a funny meme or something, but like really just, you know, getting a little window into like where they're at mentally, and where their life's at, you know, on a real level. Those types of things. It's really important for building up that support group, for not just when you're having a crisis and when you're having like a mental breakdown. Now it's already too late. I'm talking about having a support group for just everyday daily life. A support group that can, like, you know, be with you for both your highs and lows and your in-betweens, your average, you know, daily experience. That is all a form of sustained support. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need to reach out to a person now because I'm like in a really dark place because I've like cut myself off from human contact because I've just been like working in a basement on my project in isolation for like, you know, 20 days, and now I'm at a breaking point, and now it's time for me to like reach out and get support. I'm talking about like making this a sustained little efforts to like take breaks, do things in moderation, and sustain like what you need as a human being who is not like a machine that was just created to output. So yeah, I think those are the major points that have helped me to be a little bit more sustained. And then the other thing is when you start putting yourself out there, try not to fall into a feedback loop where, you know, you become kind of like obsessed with like outside validation and compare yourself to like other creators who are getting XYZ amount of validation. I like to think of it as like every time somebody like interacts with anything that I create, imagine being in a room with that person. Maybe they don't comment, and you don't have like a direct correspondence with that person, but like if you had like 10 downloads to your game, think about being in a room with like 10 people who like played your game, and maybe, you know, they didn't know you're the creator, and you just got to like kind of just see that these people were in the room playing the game, and maybe you didn't get any feedback, but how amazing is that? 10 people like were like playing your game, you know? So if you got like, you know, 10 views, and that's even views, even if they didn't download your game, even if they just like visited your website, imagine going up onto the street and like handing out, I don't know, having a tablet or something or laptop with you, and then be like, hey, look at this, and then the person actually stops walking and looks at your project and says, huh, interesting, or, you know, whatever. Maybe they never follow up and go download your game, but they still took that time for like, you know, 5 seconds to look when they didn't have to look. So that in itself, I think, is also, you know, accomplishment. Every day I work with people in these recording studios, and like it is so hard for musicians to get people to stop and listen to their work. Being more of a visual artist, I've actually been a little bit spoiled in that regards, because like it only takes like a second for somebody to look at my artwork, versus like if you want somebody to listen to your music, they actually have to spend like a decent amount of time listening, versus like what I'm communicating in an image is like done in an instant. So I think that, you know, I think that like when I've actually stopped to like talk to somebody about like their music project or like listen to their music project, like they just glow. And think about, you know, when somebody's taking any look at any of your project stuff to that capacity, like, oh, you know, that would be amazing, you know, for somebody to look at my project, or, you know, listen to even the words coming out of my mouth that I'm working on a project. Oh, that's cool. You know, even that amount of interaction, that's pretty cool. Everybody else has got their own life and their own story. You know, the fact that they would even like give you a moment of their time, I think is pretty cool. That's a level of connection. And so, you know, I would rather focus on that than like how my analytics compare to like somebody else's analytics. And I think, you know, imagining it like that at least helps me appreciate more, you know, what a great time that we live in, that, you know, we have some platforms to actually be able to distribute our own creations without having to go through like a gate-kept process. So I feel like really fortunate in that regard. That is kind of pretty much all that I really had to say, I think, this week. I had a comment on my other game, Soul Union, that there was a portion where you could kind of gather too many objects and you couldn't see all the options in renpy's like default menu system. So I did find a way to kind of add this scrolling bar to it, which will probably come in handy once the player gets to a point where they might have multiple characters who are eligible to be able to accept these gifts and unlock those sort of story moments. So I'm glad I was able to find that, and I will link in the description below like the solution that I used. It was super easy, and so it might be helpful for somebody else. And I'm also going to just show like a tiny bit of this voice clip, because another thing that I found like really kind of neat about the current project that I'm working on is that I have had the opportunity to get some of my friends and acquaintances involved in my project by doing like voice acting, and that has also like been really just really a great experience for me. Some of them have still not played the game in full, which is fine, but they took an interest in like kind of knowing what I've been working on the side, and that in itself was kind of neat, and they got to kind of see themselves or hear themselves with these characters. So I try to like be able to let them see how the final product like stands out, so they can hear kind of like the editing that I've done to their voices, and then they can also just kind of see you know, how it came together in my project, and being able to see their reactions to that, or, you know, has also been really fun, and has given me a lot of encouragement. So like this was like a clip that I gave my my latest contributor
for a sweet release,
so they would be able to see, you know, like how some of their voice lines played out.
Such a pity.
I'll put you out of your misery. Blink once and it's all over. Eat this. Say goodnight.
So if there's a way that you can get some of the people in your life to, you know, have them involved in any of your projects to any capacity, I think that will also be a great way of like having some of that communal support while having it be kind of like natural, where it's not just all one-sided, where they're like giving you their time to look and interest to see what you're doing. But if they feel like they've contributed in some way, then that's also a great way to kind of like build connections with people at the same time that you're like getting support for your project. Okay, I think I've talked enough. I'm kind of going all over the place now. I'm hoping that maybe in the next couple weeks I'll be able to release my big update, but it really just depends on how life is going. So I'll just keep plugging away at it, and if you're working on something, I hope that you enjoy the process, and I just hope that you are having a healthy and sustainable life. All right, take care. Bye.